Good afternoon again. I'm just going to start all over. I don't know how to use the smartphone very well. I'm not that smart, and I really don't want to spend a lot of time learning this contraption. I recognize it for what it is. It's an electronic leash. It's the apparatus whereby they are enslaving me, you, us. That's just the way it is. Until we take our proper place by putting our proper Creator Father Yahweh in His place, we're sunk. And nothing's going to come about. So, the purpose of this, giving psychology away, and I'm just going to take a guess, this is number 131 or 132. The purpose of this show today is to help you to understand what a sociopath is, the characteristics of a sociopath. And I'm going to do my best to cover it. I haven't prepared for this very well. I've had personal dealings with sociopaths, and it's a pretty slippery kind of creature. And so what I want you to understand is we're going to talk about the sociopath individual, and what we are dealing with is a sociopathic culture. And we're dealing in a world that has been bamboozled. I mean, the frauds are just innumerable. The deception is just incredible. And so it gets out there quite a bit. So this is giving psychology away. My name's Dr. John Taylor Kent. I have got an internet presence out there from when I first went on talk radio in about 2008 and 2009. And you're welcome to look up, Dr. Kent Show, giving psychology away. And you can look up my credentials there. I don't have much narcissism. I wish I had a little bit more. My housekeeper would disagree with me on that and claim I'm a narcissist. But between you and me, oh well. What can I say? I guess there's some things we just aren't aware of in ourselves, and that includes me. The best book is called The Sociopath Next Door, and that's the title I'm going to borrow here for this, the subtitle, if you will. The Sociopath Next Door was published, really came off the press in 2005. It was given a copyrighted date of 2006. I bought my copy in November 2005. It was copyrighted 2006. And it's a short book. I think it's short. It's less than 200 pages long, in hardback. It was written by Martha Stout, Stout. And I've never met her myself. I've never spoken with her. My guess is that she had about 50 years, about a half of a century of professional experience before she wrote this book. Dr. Stout was able to just distill this down to its essences. And she makes it so understandable, and I'm going to be able to continue that, I'm pretty sure, that you're not going to think much of it. You're going to think it doesn't matter much. It doesn't amount to a hill of beans. Well, I want you to understand it, but I want you to understand that the world is run by sociopaths. Some people like the term psychopath. I don't like it. And we psychologists can't agree upon the terms. We can't agree upon the definitions. We can't agree upon treatment or possible treatments at all. We don't even agree upon which personality cluster these things fit in. We have some general ideas, but we argue among ourselves. The telltale sign of a sociopath is that they will play the victim. And that's what puts me off in our societies, because we've all been programmed up to play the victim, to be victim. Oh, I do such and such because so-and-so did this to me, did that to me. I'm the victim. Woe was me, helpless me. Don't misunderstand me. I played the same role myself until my early 30s, probably. And then I saw somebody and worked with them for quite a bit, and pretty much got handed my stuff, so to speak. I got confronted on it, and I was very fortunate in that I actually carried that tradition on and went further than my mentor did. And so his understanding was pretty good. He was a breakthrough in the system at the time. And his name was Dr. Glade Birch. He didn't fit in because he was very conservative, and he was a devout Mormon. And he had a value system to him that wouldn't quit. He was very, he was very conservative in that. He was a family man with a very stable family. He had some children. He had been a judge earlier in life, and he, was an attorney before that, became a judge, and then he found it necessary to recreate himself, and he decided he wanted to become a psychologist. So he went off to become a clinical psychologist, and he was quite good. I think he was. At this point, I can say that we've made some major advances and some major discoveries and breakthroughs. And one of those is that most of these mental illnesses have their roots in poisoning and toxicity. In other words, they're inflicted upon the public wholesale. And so we're all subject to the same food processing, the same pots and pans, the same fire retardant chemicals in our clothes and in our furniture. We're exposed to quite a bit of the same stuff. And these things have got some real untoward effects upon us. And they can cause schizophrenias, bipolar disorders, autism. They can cause a lot of different things. And the causes are about as varied as there are different flavors of the disorders. When it comes to a sociopath, though, that tends to challenge my training, our training that we get as psychologists overall. Why? Because there's this argument. Is it nature? Meaning, is it genetically inherited? Or is it nurture? Now, there is a middle ground between those, and that is environmentally inherited. In other words, it's part of the family tradition. And so it is inherited because of the behaviors that the characteristics the family demonstrates. And so, when it comes to sociopaths, they do tend to be slightly brighter. When it comes to bipolar disorder, they tend to be considerably brighter. And when it comes to schizophrenia, some of those are remarkably brighter as well. So there is that commonality. And the good thing about intelligence is that intelligence is a good indicator that the person might be amenable to treatment, might respond well, might improve. The outcome, the changes possible are much greater with a person of intelligence than a person of lesser intelligence. Martha Stout said anybody in any profession could be a sociopath, including psychologists. Yes, and she pretty much demonstrated that. And we do have some Lulus in the field. And a lot of physicians are sociopaths. Now, I like the term sociopathic, meaning they have the characteristics, they have the flavor, they have the traits that bubble up from time to time. And they're not full-blown sociopaths. However, I like the term sociopaths because they tend to be rather pure, and I would never try to treat one. And you don't want to do battle with one. They will destroy you. They will win. One of the things Martha Stout said is that we will not catch a glimpse of them. We won't recognize them, except we might catch a glimpse of them as we walk away. And if you get to that point where you identify one, don't hang around. Don't call it out. That's something somebody foolish like me might try to do. But in defense of myself, I have labeled one time because my entire inheritance was on the line. And it didn't do me any good because these guys are very talented at deceiving others and manipulating the system. A key characteristic is that a sociopath understands the social contract. They understand the rules. They understand what's expected. And they know how to manipulate us through those rules and expectations. So they use our good nature against ourselves. They use it against us. And so The average sociopath, now I've sat with many men in the prisons and I did some queries on this because I was curious. What I can tell you is that when I was in Supermax Penitentiary, once in a while I would ask these fellows what percentage do you think of these men you're incarcerated with are the super predators? And of course, you might think, well, how would they know? Their survival depends upon them being able to identify this danger and avoiding it. They know it very well. They recognize it better than psychologists do. And every one of them gave me the proper ratio. About 20%, 1/5, were super predators that they had to worry about. Dangerous, dangerous men and dangerous women. And I got to know one pretty well. I got to know a few of them pretty well. And I would ask them their opinion. Why not? Some of these fellows really understood themselves quite well, and in that they demonstrated some good mental health. As I've told most of the gentlemen I've worked with, if a fellow can tell me about their health, then that sign to me, it's a sign of mental health. If they understand their mental health, and above all, if they can correct me, then they're much better off than what I ever figured them out to be. And the question I asked was, were you born this way? Or did you develop this way socially, in your family? And the answer I got is these fellows preferred to be called sociopaths rather than psychopaths. They found that their roots were in their families of origin and in their rearing. And in a lot of females, it's in the abuse that they end up going through, especially in early teenage years, especially if they're raped, violently, something that's that kind of a trauma. And they will quite often become sociopaths. But at the same time, it's not ironclad. Some of these people that have been victims go on to become some of the nicest people in the world. They don't become sociopaths. They don't become whatever's been done to them. And of course, we have a lot of myths in our culture. And those have been perpetuated mostly by the newspapers, which have been controlled. They've been controlled so much that it's hard to know the truth. It's hard to separate the wheat from the chaff. It's hard to discriminate properly. It's hard to even think clearly because of these newspapers that we have and the degree of manipulation they subject us to. For instance, they always claim that they're on the verge of discovering the genetic causes of mental illness, and they're that far in advance, and they've got it limited down, and they're just moments away from discovering this, only to find out that in the final analysis, the statistics wash out and there's nothing there. They thought there was something there, and they will publish it in the newspapers because they can't publish it in the peer-reviewed journals. They wouldn't be accepted. They never get published. And so quite often they'll claim there's a genetic cause to mental illness. Well, the fact is we all have genes. And so when we say there's a genetic cause, it's kind of hard to say there's not a genetic cause because there's none of us that don't have genetic material. What I'm getting at is they lie about things and they set us up to believe falsehoods so they can milk us, so they can predate upon us. Big Pharma does that more than any other business. They're busy creating patients, creating consumers for their products. They don't want to cure anything. They just want to manage it so they have lifetime clients. They get to make more money that way. One of the signs of a sociopath is that as part of their scam on us, they will do what they can to feign the victim. They will pretend they are the victim of something. And by doing that, they get us to drop our defenses. And when we drop our defenses, the means by which we protect ourselves, they predate upon us. They take advantage of us. So they will always scream bloody murder while they're beating the shit out of you. Now, that's what they will do, and they will set that up so everybody else around knows that you're beating on them when that's not the reality at all. They're beating the shit out of you, and they get somebody else to come in and help them beat on you because they fool the other people. They make so much noise. I had a sibling who used to do that to me, and in would rush my mother, and then would rush my father, and all three beat on me one after the other. That lasted for about 9 years of my life, my childhood. I don't appreciate that my parents never caught on to that. It really was a drag, believe me. So, sociopathy, they're noted for being great manipulators, understanding things. And there is a problem, you see, with most personality disorders, there are subtypes. And if you have emotional dysregulation as being the underlying flavor of a personality style, a personality disorder, that person is amenable to treatment. They're usually suffering and they're going to benefit from treatment. On the other hand, if you have a manipulative subtype, somebody who is a master manipulator and gets away with manipulating their environment and everybody around them, they aren't motivated to change. They aren't suffering. Everybody else is suffering, and they're the ones causing the suffering. So they will set up the problems in the family. And the family usually is just too foolish, too ignorant to realize they're being manipulated and being tricked. A sociopath usually starts developing their talent in childhood. And by the time they're a teenager, they usually have the type of personality style, the type of game they're going to play is already formed up. And then by the time they're in their early 20s, they've got it down pretty well. And when they hit their 30s, they're journeymen at this. They have honed their craft and they're quite good at it. They may actually start to develop flexibility in it and get even better. But quite often they haven't achieved the flexibility. And if you can sit back off in the distance and observe them, you'll find out what they are and you need to get away from them. They constantly, continuously lay traps for the rest of us. They think of bad outcomes for us, and they think several steps ahead of us. So it's like a chess player who's evil. They always think several moves ahead of you. They have contingencies. So if you're going to do this, they're going to do that. They plan this stuff and set it up way in advance. So you really can't outthink them. You can't outsmart them. Even though they may not be that intelligent, they can still outsmart you because they're so many steps ahead of you. And typically they lie. Perpetual liars. Compulsive liars. And even if you catch them in a lie, they'll come up with another lie on top of that. The whole purpose of that is to keep you off balance, to not let you get any grounding, not let you get any ground underneath you so that you might detect them and overcome them. They are always going to play game on you. They're never going to be straight ahead. And they will manipulate your emotions from here to high heaven. They will take advantage of you every which way they can. What we're dealing with today in the United States of America is a sociopathic culture. It did not originate here, but we brought it over here. We allowed them to live among us. The same thing happened over to Russia. They allowed the same group of people to live among them for about 200 years as well. And Alexander Solzhenitsyn has written a book which has not been translated yet from Russian, Cyrillic, into English. One chapter has been translated, but the publishers won't allow the rest of it. Because for the most part, the publishers are controlled. They're owned by members of the same group of sociopaths. If we go to the Bible, we will find that it all originated with Cain. And the problem is that these bad guys have altered the Bible and the translations, and they've even taken over the seminaries and trained up the professional pastors, professional priests, so that they become a bunch of liars. They don't tell you the truth. They throw you off track. And so they will put slight nuances in the words and in the translation so that you can't sort things out. But the basic gist of Genesis is that a fallen angel seduced Eve, and he fathered Cain. So Cain was half satanic or fallen angelic DNA, alien DNA, and half Adamic DNA, because Eve was from Adam. So Cain was a half-breed, and he murdered his half-brother Abel. And Abel's father was Adam, his mother was Eve. So the boys had two different fathers. Cain was banished from the garden, and he said to Yahweh, "Where will I go out there? Where will I go? They'll kill me out there." "Oh, you mean there are men besides Adam outside of the garden?" Yes, there were the Asiatics, the land of Nod. So Cain went east to the land of wanderers, and he built cities and took wives from the Asiatics. And they settled in the promised land, the land of Canaan. And so his immediate offspring were half Asiatic or Mongolian, and 1/4 Adamic from his mother Eve, and 1/4 satanic from his father. His father was Gadriel, a fallen angel, one of the 5 leaders of the fallen angels. There were approximately 200 of them that conspired on Mount Hermon a long time ago. They are who we are dealing with today. And so when the Messiah, Yeshua, who you like to call Jesus Christ, confronts them in the temple, he's confronting them, saying their father was the father of all lies. He was a liar in the beginning, and he was a murderer as well. So he's confronting them with the fact he knows that they're not descendants of Adam. They're descendants of Gadriel through Cain. Those are the ones we're dealing with. Now, Esau was born at the same time his brother Jacob was born. Jacob wrestled with an angel on the banks of the Jordan River all night one night, and he wrestled with God, with the Lord, and prevailed. And one of the things that occurred from that trial, if you will, was that his name was changed to He Who Rules with God. He who rules with Yahweh. He who rules with Israel. And so that's how his name was changed. And he became known as Israel. Israel, the man who had 12 sons and a daughter. And he really was the father of those tribes. The ones that became known as the Hebrews. Esau, on the other hand, his twin brother, developed quite a bit differently and had a lot of different characteristics to him. For one, he was a hunter. And the other is that he actually did some things that weren't advised. One of those was that he hunted men. That's what he liked to do. Another was that he decided that he was going to take Canaanite women to wife, which Yahweh Creator Father had said 5 times before then, do not intermarry with the people of the land. And of course the reason was because of their satanic, fallen angelic DNA. Esau didn't listen to reason and he took a Canaanite woman to wife. And this is what's said in the Bible, so we have good data on this. When he saw how much it upset his parents, especially his mother Rachel, he took a second Canaanite woman to wife. Then he realized what he had done to himself, how he had got himself kicked out of the family of Creator Father Yahweh. And he repented in great tears, but found no forgiveness at all. And he actually went as far as to marry a daughter of Ishmael after that, his third wife. And apparently she didn't have any satanic fallen DNA in her. In other words, she was okay, but it was too late. The damage had been done. And when Esau came back from 3 days of running from the bodyguards of Nimrod, he killed Nimrod. He murdered Nimrod, and he ran for 3 days and 3 nights, and he was famished. He wanted to eat. He gets back home, and his brother Jacob is cooking up some red porridge, red lentils. And he wanted some of this meal. And Jacob sold him the bowl of porridge, the bowl of red lentils, for his inheritance. That was the deal he struck with him. And Esau thought so little of his inheritance that he said, what good does my inheritance do me if I perish from famine, from lack of food? So he made the deal. And as a result, he became nicknamed Esau. Esau means red. Esau ended up settling at Mount Seir, which was also called Mount Edom. And there was a particular culture that developed there, and they had some different rules than the Israelites did. You see, the Israelites had a patriarchy, and the Edomites had a matriarchy. The Israelites required that only one of their brothers could rule over them. Only one of their own kind, one of their kin, one of their fellow tribesmen could be king. Whereas the Edomites didn't trust each other so badly that their rule was they could never have one of them be king over them. They had to get an outsider and appoint an outsider king. So they did a lot of things backwards from the Israelites. Eventually, about 700 AD, the Bulgar and Khazaria, which was bigger than the Ukraine, and the Ukraine was part of Khazaria, the old Khazarian territory, the Bulgar decided he wanted to convert to Judaism because he saw that the Jewish merchants got along with everybody, and he didn't want to convert to Catholicism, which was his neighbors on one side, nor did he want to convert to Islam, neighbors on the other side, because one side would fight against him. So he decided to go as neutral as he could. However, those folks in Khazaria had a set of characteristics. They loved war, and they practiced some of the old sex religions that came out of Mesopotamia. And they loved war so much that they marched under a peculiar banner, and that symbol has got a name to it. I don't remember it offhand, but I can tell you, go to my blog, givingpsychologyway.com, and you look at the last tab on the home page there, and you will see world history in one photo. And you will see the 3 symbols compared side by side. You will see the symbol of modern Ukraine that's on their flag. It's a particular design, and you will see that is next to the symbol that ancient Khazaria did battle under. And then you will see that will be next to the sign of Molech or Baal, the god to which they sacrificed children. It's all from the same source of evil. When the Edomites went north, because they heard the Bulgar was converting his people and his nobles to Judaism, they wanted to help their newfound brothers convert to the faith. So they migrated up north, taking their fallen satanic DNA with them, and mingled in and became what we now call the Ashkenazi. So bear this in mind. Some of them were tainted with satanic DNA, fallen angelic DNA from Gadriel. Most of them were not. Another key thing was that they loved war. Khazarians loved war. They kept a standing army, and they leased their army out to their neighbors that wanted to wage war on the other neighbors. In about 1100 AD, the neighbors got tired of this antisocial group, if you will. A bunch of sociopaths is what they were, and they drove them off. So Khazaria disappeared. The people didn't disappear, and in case you're wondering, they've been reestablishing that country. And they also took over the original homelands of the ancient Israelites and pretend that they are the Israelites, and they're not. That's the biggest identity theft in the world, biggest identity theft in history that they pulled off. And so you're dealing with a sociopathic culture. The same sociopathic culture brought you your Federal Reserve System, your FBI, and your ADL. All were founded in 1913 with the same backers, the same people behind it. And they took this nation down. World War I never would have happened if the Federal Reserve had not been started. So they've taken over the United States of America, and they turned us into a bunch of reprobates. They have thrown us into disarray. They have perverted us as much as we let them take us. They'll go further. And they attack us all the time. And because they own the news media and control that, the news media will never publish anything that leads you to the culprits that are causing problems here. All of these accidents you have, well, they've been waging chemical warfare against you for decades now, probably a century. They wage war in a secret, deceptive fashion, and it is unlimited warfare. It's not merely spiritual. It's important you understand the characteristics of a sociopath so that you can identify them and throw the yoke off. Because if you don't, all life on the planet hangs in the balance. From where I sit, the earth groans for her saviors. And the only ones that can save the earth are the children of Father Yahweh, Creator Father. They're the only ones can do it. So you have two warring factions on the planet. The original Israelites, who don't know who the hell they are. They don't know what they are. And then you've got the Edomites, who know what they are, who know who the Israelites are. And they have the upper hand because of that. They are going to continue their sabotage until you wake up and realize this is all on purpose. It's not by accident. They've done chemical attacks on us with dioxins before. Matter of fact, one time was 1985 in the state of Missouri. So they got a track record. They've been doing this to us for quite a while, and they've been getting away with it. There's so much more to this. The main thing I want you to understand is that they understand the social contract, the psychological contract, and they take advantage of it. They know what to expect from you. And they regard you as being a fish, a sucker, a target, a mark. And that's it. And they run circles around the rest of us because they are shrewder, more manipulative, and they make plans days in advance, years in advance. They think about what they can do if they get caught doing something. And you're dealing with a sociopathic culture. And right now they're playing a really bad game. They started this fake war so they could drain off our resources. And the sad thing is, they're making it go more real all the time. And there's a lot of people dying. And the worst part of it is that Americans are being suckered into it, just like a fish, a mark would be suckered by a con artist. They have set you up so that you think, oh my God, we just have to commit to this war and start bombing Moscow, and that's it, we win. You don't seem to understand. They set you up so that they have an excuse to take advantage of you. It's like a con artist. He tempts you to take something that's not rightfully yours. And when you fall for that, when you sucker for that, and you're going to take what isn't rightfully yours, you're going to take advantage of somebody, then the con artist looks at it as, well, if you're willing to steal from somebody else, I can steal from you. So you make yourself vulnerable. It's kind of instant karma. And in case you're wondering, you can only beat them by pressing into the Bible and Creator Father Yahweh and praying to Him to reveal things to you. You're not going to beat them by taking them head on. Could you do it? Perhaps. But at this particular point, they're sitting on all the weaponry. They're in all positions of control. Mostly because of their evil, wicked money system. They've got total control. We could have stopped this a long time ago if we'd woken up to it and realized that we shouldn't be accepting something for nothing, that there's always a price to be paid, that there's no such thing as a free ride or a free meal, and that we shouldn't be after free stuff. We should be constantly wanting to compensate the other person for their time, their labor, their talents. We should be eager to do that. You see, free stuff costs too much. So at this point, the enemy has got a stranglehold on America. It's not looking good. And at any time, they could start these nukes going back and forth. And that would really take our minds off the evil ones. It'd be pretty bad. I don't know if I've accomplished what I want to do for you today. I wanted to cover what a sociopath is and the telltale signs. The pity party is a big one because they get you to drop your defenses. Thereby they can take advantage of you because you want to step in and rescue them. And of course, I get baited in because I was a rescuer in my family of origin, and it was such a pathology, I became a professional rescuer. Became a psychologist. What do I want you to do? I want you to wake up to the fact that you are occupied illegally by a foreign power, that this government is not your government, that this media is not your media. There is no free press. And these folks are waging war against you using everything possible. They use chemistry, radiation, radio frequencies, music even. They use audio. They use everything they can against us. And I want you to realize that if you turn to Yahweh and you read His Bible and you abide by His commandments, that He will turn His way to you. And you'll be able to take them apart and stop the destruction of Mother Earth. The earth groans for her saviors. May Creator Father Yahweh, may He make America good again. There's no way America can be made great unless America is first made good. And we don't have that going for us anymore. Yahweh bless.